We continue our story at the Autobot base, and everything is going smoothly. Everyone is working to get ready. This is one of their biggest chances they have to fully take down the Decepticon cause. And keep in mind, this is one of the few timelines that Optimus has not gotten his upgrade. Huh. Actually, I think this is the first time in a What If that Optimus just really hasn't had his upgrade. Interesting. And so this is where everyone's preparing, and Bumblebee acts as Knockout. So what's that device for? Kind of in his own tone, like, hey, what's that device for? And so Knockout holds up this orb like it's the most, and he states, well, my dear Bumblebee, this here right here is a Decepticon transmitter made from me and Breakdown's old signals. And so this is where Ironhide is like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me you guys are gonna just use your own signals combined to produce technically a new Decepticon? To which Knockout says, yes, very good, my hard-headed friend. And this will be our key. Megatron's still looking for allies, still looking for an edge, so maybe he'll be desperate. And Optimus chimes in, then we will use one of the very few last-ditch efforts to end this in one simple move. And this is where Jazz simply walks in and states, yep, it's all ready. And he actually shows what he's holding, that being the spark extractor. Keep in mind, it's never been used quite yet. Because again, they never raided Cybertron. They never had to use it in a full-on war type of setting. And this is where Ratchet simply states, so we're really going this far, huh? Really about to take it to the next level. However, this is where Ratchet also chimes in stating, oh, by the way, I do have a no signal as well. And this is where it goes to the red Energon. Now, I'm going to keep this very brief. Considering the fact that the Autobots found it initially, Starscream also found it, but the Decepticons never did. Starscream was already dead in this timeline, thanks to the fact that, well, Breakdown Omega and Jazz managed to finally get him and put him down. So, Knockout, Ironhide, and Jazz are the ones to go and retrieve this red Energon. And keep in mind, considering the Autobots are still preparing and stuff, this means that Ratchet actually has time to study and to even synthesize it and maybe even get a bit more out of it. However, this is where First Aid also chimed in saying, hey, wait a minute, let me help you guys out. I'm also a medic in my own right, am I not? And maybe we can make quick progress. So as the three work on the red Energon, this is where Breakdown actually acts as Bulkhead something. Hey, can I want to talk to you for a minute, big guy. I want to just one-on-one. To which Bulkhead's like, okay. This is kind of unusual for me, but alright. So the two of them actually head to the top of the Autobot base. And we could say Mika was there too. And this sort of breakdown states, look, I may not have said it as often, but thank you for everything. And I know when I first came here, I was a pain, beating you up all the time. To which Bulkhead's like, debatable. But yeah, go on, continue. And to which Breakdown talks about it. You saved me from Mech. You and the Autobots. And for that, I owe you a great debt. And I owe you a great deal. Because the Decepticons never would have came for me. And even then, I saw how they betrayed even Knockout, stabbing him in the back. And this is where he and Bulkhead basically do the same thing they did in the original. Basically giving each other, I guess you could say, a bro hug or a bro handshake, if you will. And Breakdown stating he owes Bulkhead everything. However, back in the Autobot base, let's say a couple hours have went by. So now they actually have a good dosage of red energon, but for only 3. So after some deliberating, it's decided that Jazz, Bumblebee, and RC, considering they are already some of the fastest members on the team, will be the ones to actually take the vial. And Jazz is actually excited about this. He's like, dang, I'm going to make Blur jealous with this. Matter of fact, wait a minute. What if we gave Blur this kind of energon? To which Bumblebee actually nudges him and says, no one needs that motor mouth to get any form of dosage of this anytime soon. And this is where Jazz simply laughs. But this is where RC simply states something pretty obvious. If they do this, they could likely kill the Decepticons before they even realize it. Imagine a shock and drop, if you will. And this is where all the Autobots think for a minute. And Optimus is like, precisely. We will cripple their ship, and you three will enter. Autobots, prepare for our final battle. To which Ironhide is like, heck yeah, let's crack some Decepticon skulls. And so, when they have everything, whether it be relics or their firepower is already and everything, this is where they pretty much get into the area they need and set up the trap. The Decepticon warship then kind of flies into Earth's atmosphere, and we see Megatron and Soundwave, with Soundwave picking up the signal. And Megatron's like, another Decepticon has arrived. Soundwave, bring the warship into view. This could be our potential, I guess you could say, ally, or maybe the edge we need. And simply turns to Onslaught. You and your team will be on the ground investigating. To which Onslaught simply nods, and they pretty much head through a space bridge, basically just ground bridging them or space bridging them to the ground. And this is where the group looks around. They don't see anything. However, Blastoff walks over and picks up the orb and says, wait a minute, a Decepticon beacon? And Onslaught realizes all little too late, it's a trap. However, this is where they see a giant hand come over the hill, and it's none other than Omega. And this is where he simply states, you Combaticons only have one option, surrender now. And the Combaticons combine into Bruticus immediately and states, you're gonna have to make me, punk. And so both of them rush at each other and they begin engaging in fisticuffs, with Omega taking out his new and improved cannon, or pretty much his cannon for the first time, and blasts his, Bruticus into the side of a hill, with Bruticus then utilizing his Sonic Pain Wave in order to get, Omega back from him. And Megatron simply states, Earth, the Autobots have planned this. It's an ambush. Soundwave, get us out of here. And this is where he feels a rumble and a loud boom. And this is where, all too late, he realizes just how screwed he actually is. You see, while the warship was in view, Optimus was behind it. And when he came out of his hiding spot, he immediately unsheathed the Star Saber and let out a super powerful energy wave, crippling the ship this time. Not leaving it in, just a basic state. He cripples it. And this is where Megatron feels his ship going down. And he's like, no, this shouldn't be possible. And this is where Jazz, Bumblebee, and RC begin storming it, busting through their entrance and stuff like that. Let's say Jazz utilizes his Sonic Cannon, or RC uses a Polarity Gauntlet or something like that. And this is where Bumblebee and, all three of them pretty much activate their red energon, or just inject themselves with it, and keep moving, with Bumblebee planting the Spark Extractor and sending it to go off. However, this is where we pan over to Soundwave, and he informs Megatron that the Spark Extractor is activated on the ship. Keep in mind, they can't see the Autobots. However, this is where Soundwave feels a pain and then drops dead with a hole in his chest, with Jazz simply monologuing about, man, if only Cliff Jumper was here to see this. Matter of fact, he would probably enjoy this red energon stuff, not gonna lie. And keep in mind, in normal time, Megatron's like, what? What's going on? What? Ah! And then he just kind of drops to his legs, realizing that his tendons have been slashed and he's leaking energon. And he's like, what is going on? However, in Speed Time, RC pretty much looks at him with a very satisfied smile on her face. And, simply states that this is for all your crimes that you did. And so she and Jazz simply hightail it out of there. However, as the Spark Extractor goes off, at least two Decepticons are able to get out of there in time. That being Arachnid, who actually escapes through one of the, I guess you could say, the airlock of the warship, and simply flies off into the distance, just barely managing to get herself out of its radius. And then there's Dreadwing, who was already making his way to the entrance, sees the energy of the Spark Extractor coming, and transforms and jets out of there. Meanwhile, Bumblebee, RC, and Jazz are simply watching from the sidelines at this point. actually being able to deactivate their red energon surge. And well, this is where they all surround Bruticus, all pointing their guns at him. And Bruticus realizes that he's surrounded. And keep in mind, this is where Ironhide also joins in at this point, along with Breakdown Omega, simply stating, "You only have one option at this point: surrender, and we will spare you." And this is where Dreadwing, seeing that he's lost, his master is definitely going along with Soundwave and the rest of the Decepticon army. Dreadwing immediately puts his sword down before Optimus and simply kneels, with Optimus simply stating, "Rise." We don't do that. And he's willing to offer them another chance, just like Breakdown and Knockout. And so, this is where, after disassembling, Onslaught simply walks towards Optimus, and both he and Dreadwing shake their hands, with Jazz simply stating, "Well, seems like everything's going smoothly so far. Now we can just head back to Cybertron, right?" And to which Knockout's like, "Yes, indeed. We have the Omega keys and we have everything we need, right? So why not head back to Cybertron? Plus, we don't have too much to worry about." However, little did we know that opening that mouth, that sweet, that dangerous mouth, would have actually came back to bite them, as Arachnid finds something very interesting, and it being the Insecticon hive. And obviously, realizing that she's technically the last Decepticon, she opens up the hives and pretty much summons every Insecticon. And obviously, they kneel before their queen. And this is where she simply states, "Now is her age. Now is her time. Now is her rise to power." However, this is where one of the Insecticons interjects and simply asks, "So, my queen, what do we do now?" And Arachnid turns to her follower, obviously this one being Hardshell, and she simply states, "Ah, dear Hardshell, we will be heading to Cybertron, and we will conquer it in my name." And that's we're gonna leave it off here, you guys. How is everything gonna go? Are you guys happy that Dreadwing and the Combaticons at least survived this ordeal? And how would they be able to redeem themselves? But find out in one of the few last parts of this series.